Greetings, good listeners. Shaunga here, storyteller and spell weaver, and artistic director of Otherworldly Giants. And I have a treat for you today. We are talking about the Spider-Woman technology. So, if you've been following along, I have been unfolding my vision of what I call the universal badass income, which I do believe is possible to achieve in the coming years. So, this is a big vision that I've been unfolding, and I am not going to recap everything right now. So, I'll put some links in the show notes so you can look at some previous episodes where I've talked more about like the spirit behind it and different parts of its technology. But today we're really going to talk about the architecture of how um, this business model works that gets us um, co- uh, that gets us to a universal badass income in the coming years. And along with that, I'm going to talk to you about this vision I have for the circulation of ancestral artist grants, which can start as early as this year. So, the spirit behind this vision is really to bring back the ancestral roots of sacred reciprocity into our modern day. So, sacred reciprocity as a very ancient and also just like mundane part of nature, right? Mundane part of the universe. But very, sacred ancient roots in terms of how thriving villages would practice this. I don't want to call it a concept. Or even a protocol. It's just like a way of life of being in sacred reciprocity with ourselves and all of our relations. And so I'm really invested in bringing that back into the modern day and applying it to how we use money and circulate money and how we might be able to create new business models that embody and express sacred reciprocity in ways that we haven't yet done as a human collective in our modern day history. And so I've shared before that I've learned a lot of lessons about money in the last several years. But long story short, I no longer want to find success in any of the dominant ways that we currently circulate money, um, including, a lot of aspects of spiritual entrepreneurship that I have, dabbled with over the last, I don't know, 10, 12, 13, 14 years that I've run a spiritual business. And just leaving behind the things that no longer work and really looking at the ways that all different kinds of models of circulating money don't actually embody the principle of sacred reciprocity. And like most of us, like probably all of us watching this video, I would hope, are deeply concerned. I'm deeply concerned about the impact that capitalism and extractive industries have on us and our planet. And yeah, like the mass murder that of human and non-human life that these ways of being cause, um that literally like every second of the day someone is dying. um but also, these industries have an impact on all of us, just our bodies, our spirits, and they infiltrate our relationships, and the ways that we treat each other, like these industries have conditioned us to just move about our lives. So anyway, the universal badass income is a way of circulating money via the codes, memories, and ancient practices of sacred reciprocity. And this is my focused research study in 2025. And so I've been studying like energetically all these different ways that we bring money into our lives, like I said, from spiritual entrepreneurship to how all the myriad of ways that we fund the artist life, right? And also looking at things like mutual aid and donations, charity, reparations, like all these different ways that we circulate money. Um, so basically, we are at a point of time on Earth's clock where every single one of these financial systems of exchange are shifting, and we are being required to shift our practices around each and all the ways, shift our practices in every single paradigm, and required by the planet herself. And as I see it, it's her commitment to her own healing and her own body, and she's taking control. And she's like, "You guys got to shift because I'm doing this for me." Um, so I know that there's so many people on the planet right now who are just aching to participate and experience true reciprocity. And we see this just like whenever there's a crisis, it's very overwhelming, right? Because there are crises happening all the time in so many different places of the world and in our internal bodies and in our circles. And we don't know how to support everything. But we don't have to get overwhelmed with everything that needs to be done. We can hone in our focus on small things that have a big impact. Um, and we can acknowledge that we're very, as societies and cultures, like we're very available to offer massive amounts of money to publicly visible and famous crises. We've seen that. I don't need to give any examples, but this is obviously a really good thing. However, the problem is that our cultures are still by and large stuck in patterns of saviorship, right? So we invest in things like humanitarian aid, and it puts a band-aid on a crisis, but it doesn't actually end the root cause, or transform the circumstances that lead into the crisis. So what I am putting forward is that our engagement with mutual aid needs to shift into a deeper spirit of mutuality. Why? Okay, mutual aid by and large depends on people having to prove their suffering in order for people to feel inspired to give. And then only the most visible sufferers get the money, and countless people or groups of people who don't have that kind of media attention, don't get the money or support they need. Plus, what happens if someone is, receiving mutual aid, but then finds a way to get out of their own personal crisis, and starts, they're getting out of their crisis. Then we say, "Oh, okay, we don't need to support you anymore. Capitalism will support you. We will funnel you into capitalism, right? Capitalism will keep you alive now, not your village." So there's something there to look at, and I want to interrupt that. Let's create different kinds of marketplaces and economies that are sacred in their origin. When I talk about the sacred origins of the marketplace, that just lights me up. So this is also going to help us interrupt this ongoing pattern of crisis, saviorship, right? So, what does this architecture of a business model look like that can embody sacred reciprocity and transform the circumstances that keep us locked in these patterns? So, the model I'm envisioning is an alchemy of the best parts of spiritual entrepreneurship and community fundraising and an investment into an artistic life. Okay, so my vision for this blew wide open um, for last summer, um, when I took this fundraising training who that was organized by two folks named Chanel and Jules, and it was called Raise 10K in 10 Days for Palestine. Um, and it's on YouTube. So I will I'm not going to go over everything that they they taught me in that video, but I'll put the link below and you can check it out. I really highly recommend um, going, just watching the video, watching the training because it's really it did really blow my mind, the fundraising technique that they put forward, and I had never thought about fundraising like this before. Especially, if you're raising money for anything, or mutual aid or whatever, look at that training. Um, so there's just a lot of really great skill building in there. Um, but briefly, how and why did it change the way that I think about fundraising? So the basic concept that they kind of put forward is that, say if you have a matter you need to fundraise for, instead of thinking, okay, I have to ask my community for money again, I have to ask them for a favor or whatever. Instead, you identify key people in your circles as organizers for a movement. So it's a reframe, right? We're not asking people to donate to a cause. We're asking people to join a movement and to support a movement in material ways. And then people want to contribute because they believe in it and they want to feel a part of something that they believe in. So say you pick, three or four people, say 4 to 6 people who really believe in the matter that you're fundraising for. And you form a small team, and this is your team of organizers. And this team supports one another to develop a really short and impactful pitch, like who, what, why, where is this happening? Why am I doing this? And why should anyone want to contribute to this today? So let's say 4 people, and then you make a list of, each of those 4 people will make a list of like 10 people, 20 people, or 30 people, whatever. Um, in their phone or in their networks, who they also think is people who believe in this movement. And then you take a few days dedicated to this, and you just call everybody on that list and you make a direct ask. And it's a very short conversation because you've already workshopped that pitch. And here's where some skill building and courage, right, is needed, right? It's not hard, but it takes courage. But you're not like, it's not hard in terms of, the actual skill of like picking up the phone and asking someone for something, but it's hard kind of emotionally and psychologically and all that kind of stuff. So because you have this organizing team, right? That makes it so much easier. That makes it so much less scary because you're not in this alone. You have each other's support, and then you practice your pitches on each other, right? You find the best language to use. You remind each other you're not begging for money or asking for charity. You're inviting people into a movement, and you remind each other like how desperate people are to find ways to participate in movements that are helping the planet, right? Or helping whatever cause it is. And you're offering people a way in. So people on that kind of end, remember, they want to hear from you. All right. So you spend a few days making these calls, right? And so maybe like you'll spend like make 2, 3, 4 calls, and then you hop on a Zoom with your team, right? And then you debrief, right? And so it's fun, it's supportive, it's rewarding. You celebrate each other's wins, and then you help each other through the tough spots. Um, so say out of the 20 people that one person talks to, then you might identify 3 other people that you talk to who are really enthusiastic about that. And those 3 people, as you're talking to them about this, are like, oh my God, I know like 7 more people who I can call about this. Then you can invite them to be an organizer on your team, right? Or you're basically always kind of having your eye out, like who's an organizer, right? And you can approach those people then like, come on, join us, like it's fun, we're doing another like phone blitz tomorrow. Why don't you make a list of those 7 people, or think of a few more people, and why don't you give them a call? And so now you have diverse networks circulating money through their networks, and it's all coming back to one channel, into one very intentional purpose, and it happens very efficiently. So this solves so many problems that we run into when doing community fundraising. Um, and this is, all like things that I learned from taking this training, right? So putting a call on social media for mutual aid has a very low success rate, right? So if you're just like posting on social media and be like, come on, donate, please, it's a low success rate. People are just scrolling, right? People aren't motivated to give in that way very often. Um, However, you pick up a phone, the phone, and you talk to someone directly, that has actually a very high success rate. Um, what this also does is solve the problem of scarcity, right? It reminds us that there's actually so much money just sitting around and waiting to be moved for good causes and revolutionary purposes, right? So you're not like, oh, like nobody would donate to me. It there's a lot of money, right? Or that kind of thought around like everyone's tapped out. No, not true. Not true if you do it this way. Um, and part of what that is, right, is like you're diversifying who you ask, right? And so you're not just continuing to ask your own mailing list, you're not just asking your own social media list all the time. One pond is never getting too depleted. And here in this kind of in this model, it's okay to say no, right? Most people will say yes um to give something, if they really believe in it and they have something to give. Sometimes people don't, and that is okay. And it's okay for someone to say no, I can't right now. And we don't make anyone feel bad about that. You just thank them, and you trust that you have abundance that you need coming from other channels. And on that end, you also don't decide for other people that they're too broke or too poor to contribute. And this is something that Chanel said in this training, and I really appreciate it. So often we feel like, oh, I don't want to ask so and so for money because they're broke. And Chanel's like, don't erase poor people from movements. Let them decide if they want to say yes or no. Of course, use your discernment, right? Like, don't call someone and ask them for money if you know, like, it's not a good time for them, right? But, like, too often, we don't ask for support because we make decisions for other people before we give them a chance to say yes or no. Let people decide for themselves. So fundraisers like this can be exponentially successful with small to medium contributions, right? Because that's another thing we run into. We're like, I don't know any rich people. How can I do a fundraiser? You don't need to know rich people. Wealthy people can certainly give bigger contributions. But because we're diversifying, because we're organizing, the small and medium just add up really quickly. And in this model, organizers can come in and out, right? So if you get a mutual campaign 1 month and then 6 months later you need support again, bring together a different organizing team, right? A different 4 to 6 people. The money will come from different bank accounts and nobody gets depleted. And there is enough to go around. Okay, so those are like some major things that I learned from that training. And this is something that really blew my mind open. And I started thinking about, okay, now this is really great for mutual aid and crisis organizing. What about the sustainability of in our lifetime? What about sacred reciprocity? How do we evolve a practice like this and make it a part of our everyday lives? How do we build a practice like this that will put money on our thriving repeatedly, right? Instead of saying, now that you're thriving, go to capitalism, right? And so how do we fuel our creativity, our art projects, our sacred businesses with this kind of technology? Or how do we infuse it or weave it in other business technologies? So, for example, all the things we love to do, like birthing courses and programs and events and retreats and products and services. How do we make this available for that? How do we make this practice available for the yin parts of life? Right. And, this is the more internal parts of our creative process, our healing journey, the parts of life that are most undervalued and under-resourced, but it's what we all hold most dear, right? So, like the parts of life we hold most dear. And I'm talking about what about the times in our life that you know, spirit asks us to just like sit down and grieve, cry all day. You know, your job right now is to release generations of grief from your ancestors, for your ancestors, you know, and the ancestors in your body that didn't have the space to do it in their lifetime. And what about the times that spirit is asking you to rest? Like, please, like, don't try and make that thing coming out of your energy field into one more sellable offer. Like, please just rest, right? What about the times that you wanna learn or develop a new skill? What about the times that you know you're not actually supposed to be, offering anything? You're supposed to be learning. You're supposed to be developing skills, right? What if we want time to, like, fully just devote to our healing and working with therapists or healers or, you know, weaning off addiction, working through trauma? We don't have any models to, you know, allow ourselves to give those things the full attention that they deserve or when they call. We've made it normal to do a million other things to pay the bills while trying to do the most important thing on the side. So, the Spider Woman technology, first and foremost, asks us to be honest with ourselves about what we really need to give our attention to at any given moment. So, if you were being really honest with yourself right now, but what you needed to do with your time today or this week or for the next 3 months. Imagine first imagine what that is. If you could just do the most important thing in your life right now. For some people, it will be grieving, right? For many people, it will be something that doesn't automatically have a price, you know, have something that you can cash in on real easy, right? But just imagine that you could do that thing and have it fully funded by an ancestral artist grant. I was looking at the time when I said that. It was like 20, it was like 222 something. And what if you knew that you could divest from, you know, the industry wrapped up in genocide that is currently paying your bills because you had better options? So if you sat down with spirit and spirit said, "Okay, your protocol for the next 40 days is a rest retreat." Okay, so how can I do that while running a business, right? Or going to my 9 to 5 job? What if you knew that you could have the money to resource that? So the fundamental principles of the Ancestral Artist Grant, which is powered by the Spider Woman technology, the principles are deep listening and honesty, ancestral sincerity, that's part of the honesty, and the ancestral sincerity part is also part of what the sacred reciprocity is. It's not just any kind of honesty. It's deep, deep honesty where your healing is in solidarity and in collaboration with the healing of the planet as a whole and with parts of our earth body that are most subjugated um, and burdened by these extractive systems and genocide and all those things. So, what is your healing that you need to do for your body, mind, spirit that is in solidarity with that? That's your ancestral sincerity. And it's not like, oh, I got to do more for the, you know, there's a lot of guilt um and saviorship, like I'm saying, and there's a lot of shit we gotta weed out in terms of how we respond to our privilege. And this is, you know, why when talking about, this model of sacred reciprocity, it really is about more it really is more about the principles of it and the energy and the commitment to sacred reciprocity that is the most difficult to embody because we have a lot of unwinding to do in order to get to that. But I'm at a point in my life where I've done that, right? And I want to I want to do this with other people who are available for the principles, who are available for that level of like sincerity and honesty in the body. So there is this level of like, okay, listening, honesty, sincerity, solidarity, and then there's the self-acknowledgement and self-advocacy. So that's the willingness to be honest with yourself and then share that with others and show who you are to others. Then the part that comes after that is communal recognition. So you don't just share who you are, you share, and then your community recognizes you and supports you for being who you are. What the Spider Woman technology trains us to do is regard one another as fellow planetary altar carriers. It teaches us to understand ancestral organizing for liberation, meaning when spirit asked me to do this 40-day rest protocol, I'm not aware that, Susan 3 doors down is being asked to finally advertise her sacred retreat space that she's been building for 3 years. Ancestral organizing. Or, Jenny, the next town over, is being called towards something really weird and wild that she doesn't quite understand, but she's following her ancestral sincerity and she's just doing it. Spirit just needs her to trust, and so she does it. And she doesn't know, she's doesn't, there's nothing that it doesn't make sense at all in terms of like why would this help anyone, but what she doesn't know is that Peter over there has been struggling because he can't figure out how to get his project to run, but everything comes together when he sees Jenny's weird and wild idea. Okay, so that's ancestral organizing for liberation. It's tuning into the wisdom of a larger web that we're weaving, and that our greater spirits, you can say our higher selves or whatever, like they can see the larger picture. And by following the call, we begin to create communities. By following the call and then sharing with one another in this way, we begin to create communities where we know each other really well, where I can say, this is what my call is, and someone else is saying, this is what my call is. And we appreciate everyone, you know, for following this trust and intuition and guidance because we start to see more and more how it's all connected. And we learn to appreciate the innate wisdom that comes from every single part of the process. We appreciate the thing that doesn't make sense that we're called to do. Um, and we can see the moments where, wow, like when Shaunga, cries for 5 days straight, um, and is in this outpour of grief, she comes out with such wisdom about her grief, and she shares that with people, and what she offers is priceless. And 5 people over there would not get through the next 3 years if, I hadn't done that, right? Like, so that's also ancestral organizing for liberation. We shift our thinking and we learn to understand how essential and non-negotiable we are to each other in our individual healing journeys when we're just following that call. Now we're invested in protecting each other's self-investment. Okay? Um, Let me just look at my notes for a minute. I want to take this a one step further. So we're talking about regarding each other as planetary altar carriers. Spider Woman asks that of us. And she also asks us to think of ourselves as producers. This is where we're like really bringing the artistic technology into it. Learn how to think like a producer thinks. Think like an investor. Think of yourself as someone who dedicates your life to your own self investment, your healing, your creativity, and you're a producer, you're also looking for other people and projects to invest in based on who you are and based on who they are in your sincerity. For example, in episode 3 of this series, this 2-week storytelling series that I've been hosting, you can take a look at the link in the show notes. This is part of this 2-week series that I've been hosting called "The Truth About What Art Can Do in Times of Genocide." So in episode 3, I believe, was that 3 or 4? Maybe it was, yeah, one of those. It's when I talked about the definition of a thriving village. And the definition that I brought forward in that episode was a thriving village is somewhere where everyone knows who they are and the community continues to support everyone for being who they are. And also in that episode, I kind of went on this journey and I took you to a place where I declared who I am as a death surgeon, right? So this is a sacred role that I play in my life in community. I am devoted to the end of life phase like a death surgeon is. It's who I am. And, I talked about in that episode how I'm in a constant state of rage that this phase of life is so undervalued and under resourced. So, if that's who I know I am, and I'm sharing that with others, as a producer, I'm also looking for ways to give back to my advocacy. If I don't give back to what I care about, say the end of life phase, my heart will bottom out. Um, we can't go through our lives without giving back. So, what happens if I come across someone's Spider Woman fundraising campaign and they're saying, I'm in the end of life phase. My only job right now, as determined by spirit and my ancestral listening and my sincerity, is to just celebrate this whole journey that I've just been in and engage my closure rituals. That's my only job right now. I'm raising X amount of money for my artist grant so I can do just that. Payment portals are open. Me, as a producer, I see that and I'm like, that is exactly mine to invest in. So this is important when it comes to sacred reciprocity, right? Because especially as spiritual people, it's really important that we are intentional about where our money goes. Sometimes we don't give to a certain project because it's spiritually out of alignment with our values, or it's just like not where we're supposed to spend our energy. And that needs to be honored too. But we have the principle of abundance here again and respect for people when they say no. It's okay to get a call as a producer and saying, no, that's not for me to contribute to. But you know what? Maybe, I saw a Facebook group who, would be all over that, right? So there's no scarcity because an organizing team for a particular project can come together and brainstorm, right? Um, we're getting stuck and we need, an extra 2K to reach our goal. Let's figure out a different venue. Um, so yeah, and the Spider Woman technology is not just for the yin parts of life. It's also for the times that we do have incredible creative offers. It is also for entrepreneurship. And the medicine we have to give out into the world. And so here's where we can weave it in with entrepreneurship and get really creative, especially because, the part that I love about spiritual entrepreneurship is that it really challenges us to hone in on our greatest creative genius, right? And so that's when people are really successful in their spiritual entrepreneurship is they find something that is just so uniquely them. And that really attracts people to you, right? That makes people feel like um, this is, undeniable and um, I can't say no to this, right? And so we don't want to put that away, right? We want to honor and enliven the creativity and the true expression of abundance and wealth of our medicine, you know. But let's weave that in with organizing for Sacred Reciprocity. So here's an example. Say you're someone who has incredible wisdom on a topic, but you don't have a big audience. But say Patty over there does. Patty is like, oh my God, I had no idea you were talking about that shit. I had no idea that you had so much wisdom in that area. I've been aching for that. I have 2,000 people on my email list who are aching for what you have to offer. Let's do an event together, right? Let's co-produce something. So we're doing this entrepreneurial thing, but the way that we're pitching it is slightly different. It's not just buy a ticket because that's what you do for an event. It's when you buy a ticket, you are helping build a movement. So you're not just selling the topic of the event, you are asking people to invest in a part of the process that is powering the content, right? So come see this person's talk. They're going to share their stories about how they healed from social trauma. And the money is going toward funding an ancestral artist grant for them that will support the phase of life they're currently in, which is how your life completely changes after a parent dies. Fund this part of the process because it means something to you too. So we're not just funding who they are, we're funding where they are. And that's why we understand how connected we are to that. Join this community, right? Like contribute, please, because when you need support for your ancestral artist grant, when you can't get up out of bed, when you can't go to work because you're overcome with grief, then this will be here for you too. You will have a turn as well. Everyone gets a turn if they want one. Give as much as you can, right? So we're not asking to donate. We're not asking for a favor. We're building a movement. And we're all part of this as givers and receivers. So let's be motivated to give big so we can grow this movement. You know, for example, give as much as you can to this artist who is downloading this mega enormous ship that we call magical reality TV for the revolution, right? Fund her because she wants to be funded by a community that resonates with her vision and not rich white men producers whose bottom line is exploitation. Give as much as you can because don't you want that for yourself too? Don't we all want that? Don't you want an option like this available to you? Because how is it ever going to be available unless we start creating it with each other and for each other? So let's do it one small thing at a time, right? The more we build a culture around this, the more we get to receive the benefits. And this is really one of the most beautiful things about Sacred Reciprocity is that when it's one person's turn to receive from their community, they get pour into one person, pour into one person, pour into one person. It's not like, oh, you've had enough. Like everyone gets a turn to be poured into like that. And we allow people to have the completion of their abundance. I could take it to like an erotic place too, right? Like that isn't that how you like to have sex? You know what I mean? Like it's when it's your turn to receive pleasure, like receive it. Don't be like, "Oh, I feel guilty. It's been too long. I should do something for you." Like right? Like so we're bringing that into how we treat each other as community members too. And I have to say when we think of ourselves as producers, we are taking back what colonial and extractive industries took away from us. Communities are robbed of so much because we don't take care of our artists. We just let them get ravaged by these devastating entertainment industries. We gobble up what's left of their medicine after it's filtered through the energetic exploitation machines like Netflix or whatever. And then we complain about the fact that those artists are selling out and not about the people. We rob ourselves when we don't give back to our artist, including the artist within, including the artist that is the full creative process of life. We rob ourselves when when we're not able to say, like, I'm in an artistic healing journey in life. This is where I'm at right now, and this is what needs to be funded. Producers, where you at? Right? And we rob ourselves of the joy of getting that phone call of like, hey, I know you're this kind of producer because I know you. I know your self advocacy because you've told me, you've shared it. I know your heart wants to invest in this project because it's right up your alley. Thank you. I need to give back in this way. Thank you. And you don't have to be rich to be a producer or an investor. You can give $5 if that's all you have to give. That's valuable, right? So let's talk numbers. Okay. So say you have a project that you're organizing an ancestral grant for, and you bring an organizing team together. Say a team of 4. 4 people have, let's say, 20 people on their list that they're going to call over the course of 3 days. Let's say 90% of people say yes. Maybe 10% are like, I can't this time. By the way, I already did the math, so I don't need to like take out my phone calculator. That's why I'm not actually this good at math. 18 times 4 is 72. Okay, so that's 72 people. If 90% of 20 is 18. And so um 4 people have asked, 18 people who have said yes. That's 72 people. And so say everyone who said yes gave a range of like $20 to maybe some people like were able to give a higher number, like 1,000. Okay? So let's say on average that's $300 per person. That's roughly 20K in 3 days. Oh no, but it's more because through the process, these 4 people, amongst these 4 people, we found 5 extra people who wanted to organize on this with us, who were so excited about it. So, and we brought in 5 extra people just by talking on the phone to some people for a few days. And so those 5 people found 10 extra people who gave, say, an average of $100. That's an extra $5,000. So now you're 25K in 5 days. That's your ancestral artist grant. Okay, so let's look at another example. What about the person who hosted that online event, right? Who was it, Patty? Patty was like, oh my God, like I have 2,000 people on my email list who need this like yesterday. Okay, so they organize a really amazing, online event that is uh when marketing like really sings, like when people see it and you're like, oh my God, I need to sign up for that immediately because it's coming so deeply from someone's heart and spirit. So let's say 2,000 people did sign up to pay $15 to come hear this person offer their medicine. 2,000 times 15, that's a 30K artist grant. And that's maybe a week's worth of promo just because people were so ready for it. Oh, but that's not it. That's not it. We're not just leaving it at $15 per ticket. Remember, we're inviting people to contribute to a movement. We're saying this person is fundraising for an artist grant and we're building a movement. It's not just like, oh, give to them, to their silly art project that is their individual thing and that doesn't really impact anybody. No, this is impacting all of us. Come on. So we're not simply organizing an event for you to buy a ticket and enjoy the thing and then go home. We're saying you get medicine here at this event and you get an amazing experience and you get to be part of building this movement that you will directly benefit from. We all will, right? This is part of protecting us in this cultural milieu of rising fascism and climate disaster and all the rising costs of basic necessities. Don't you want a different option? This is a powerful way to build that with one another right now. Give as much as you can. We're building a movement one small thing at a time. Your small thing can happen tomorrow if you want. right? Give whatever you can. Okay, so say 1,000 people, say out of those 2,000 people, 1,000 people were inspired to give um, as much as they could, and say 1,000 people paid $15 for the ticket because whatever, that's what they could do. So already we have 15 times 1,000 is 15,000. And say on average, the people who gave as much as they can out of those 1,000 people, say, there's a range, but say on average it was $100 per person. 1,000 times 100 is 100K. Whoa, okay, so we just went from this person receiving 30K for their Ancestral Artist Grant to blasting into six figures for one event. That's 1 week of promo. That's just by shifting our language, just by shifting our thinking. Blasted into six figures just by advocating for something that took me, 2 minutes. It took one sentence. As soon as I said cultural milieu of rising fascism, probably because I said the word milieu, but also rising fascism, food costs, right? As soon as you said that, you're like, fuck, I need to give as much as I can, right? And yeah, nobody broke the bank. And this is all because somebody advocated for their grief and advocated for their medicine and made a collaboration happen. And so now that 100K can still go toward that same cause, right? That same person, but maybe that same person now wants to give back somewhere their reciprocity, their reparations, or whatever. Or maybe that person has 100K in debt, in college debt, that they can actually pay off now, right? So we start to do this one thing at a time, and we start to see this larger vision. And the beauty of this is that multiple artist grants can be generated at the same time, right? um, 20 people, 4 people can be making their phone calls for one person at the same time that this other event is happening, at the same time that 3 other things are happening. And it's because it's all diversifying through different networks. Okay, so you see this larger vision now. Do you see how Spider-Woman is moving? I call her grandmother multiverse, another story. She's weaving and spreading through multiple communities and hoops and circles now, and organizers keep coming and going, right? So nobody gets burnt out. No one is someone is like, I'm tired of this. I don't want to make phone calls anymore for a year. Great. 20 other people do. And it's great that it starts spreading, right? It's great that people step back because now more and more people are participating in it. And when there is a crisis, we are way more organized and self-sufficient, and we can give a crisis much more, largely and with a bigger impact. And people don't have to prove their suffering, right? People can be in a crisis and still ask for support in the same way that anyone else would, right? Still be in their dignity. They don't have to beg you. They don't have to show you pictures of how bad it is in order for people to care. We just say, like, I'm in crisis. This is where I am in the healing journey. All hands on deck. Come through now. So imagine what we could do with that kind of power in a few years' time. Just a few years of this kind of practice. What kind of divestment that we could make from genocide and genocidal industries because we are practicing such sovereignty, the financial sovereignty, the artistic sovereignty, and it is grounded in deep spiritual sovereignty. The spiritual and artistic sovereignty is the most important part. The financial sovereignty happens because of those two things. Okay, so what do we do next? While I have this vision, it's not yet ready for implementation, because I really want to bring together a group of folks to workshop this over a period of time. And what we're really workshopping are the principles of sacred reciprocity And we're really trying to work out, like, how do we design an architecture for an experiment like this, um, with the best energetic principles, right? With the most sincere principles of sacred reciprocity, because that's how it's going to be sustainable, and that's the power of it, right? So that's one thing that I'm wanting to invite people to do, when to come into this 4-month ancestral think tank and artist retreat that I'm hosting. That is called When We Lived and Died in the Thriving Village. And it's an artist retreat. It starts next Saturday. But this artist retreat is dedicated to bringing thriving back into our lives on all directions. And 1 or 2 of our sessions will be devoted to studying this technology. So, yeah, I really want to workshop this with a group. I want, people on it who believe in the spirit of it and who can see things that I can't see. And then this group, I want us to be the first successful possibility model, right? I want us to be the first cohort to receive these rapid fire, community raised, community generated ancestral artist grants. And so everyone who goes through this 4-month retreat with me will have the training and energetic attunement required to go, create a little container, right, where we experiment with this. Um, you know, and so you can self-select and say, I want to be one of those people who have the community pour into me, or I want to support someone to receive a grant because, I'm good right now, but I really want to see this work for someone else. So we'll design something for one another that is really exciting and fun and meaningful. So that's my vision. The retreat runs from February to May, and we do start soon. Like I said, February 8th, next Saturday, and doors close on Wednesday, February 5th. So hurry if you want to join. Check the link in the show notes and sign up. And you can check out the last video that I made, and I'll put the link in there too, where I'll take you through what it's going to be like in the full retreat. Because with this, we're studying for 1 or 2 sessions, and I want you to get a sense of what all the sessions will be like. So I'll leave it there for now, good listeners. Wow, the Spider-Woman technology. Oh, this has just been such a journey for me to like download this huge vision and unfold it in pieces. And damn, this is just a milestone for me to finally be able to share these details with you today. And so, yeah, even, if you don't join the retreat, I really hope that you just like think about it and, work with it in your own way, bring it to your circles, talk about it with your communities. I will also, okay, let me say it this way. I'm available for this for life, right? So it's not just this 4-month period and then afterward I'm done with it, right? So I'm going to be continuing to workshop it and, be present with it and how it's unfolding. But I'm really excited just about creating a business model that reflects this. I don't want to be paid another way, that's, I love entrepreneurship and I love being a ceremonialist. And as being a ceremonialist, those times of my life have always been the most important, the kinds that are not funded, right? The the just sitting with spirit, at sitting with the altar, being in nature, communicating with the trees, um being in the parts of life that matter the most. And I'm really excited to like design business models that really serve us and really serve humanity and the parts of life that matter most to us. So that's it. I'm going to end it there and check out all the linky links. And I really hope that if you're called to do this retreat with me, sign up. And if not, sign up for the mailing list, to, keep in touch with this journey as it unfolds. All right. That's it for now. Until next time. Peace.